And we are now on step 8. And step 8, we are making the front axle and the dampers. So step 8, so we need some parts. BC2, that's from the BC bag. BA5s from the BA bag, and they are the 3x6mm screws. We need 2 of those, and the locking nuts, which are 3mm. So as you can see, I've laid those out there. We need the U-bolts, 4 of those from the bag B. We need the spring seat, 2 of those from bag B. We need the damper springs, 6 of those from bag B. We need the damper shaft, 6 of those from bag B. And we need the cylinder, the damper cylinder from bag B, which are these anodized aluminiums, and the front damper stay, again from bag B. We also need the main front axle, which is a metal axle, which is really nice. We also need the leaf springs, and get 2 of those as well. So, and they are actually metal leaf springs, so they are amazing. They've actually got three levels, so it's simulating the leaf springs on a actual truck, which is really, really nice. So we now got to put this all together. The greasing here, optional parts available would be oil shocks, but let's do this as stock and see how it handles, and go from there. So we'll now do that step. So the first part of step 8 is building the dampers. You need to make 6 of them. So as you can see here, I've made 5 already. Very simple step. Take the MB10, the damper cylinder, take off the top, take the MB9, apply a bit of ceramic grease, like so. Take the F part, which is the F14, little black spacer, like a washer if you like. Take the cylinder, pop that back into the cylinder. Take your screwdriver into the cylinder, into the head of the screw. There's like a little head of the screw. Just show you that. There you are. Put that through. Take again the F part, F3, and you screw the F3 part into this. Into there you are. So that's the shaft through, and I just use hex drive, just pop that to hold that, and then you can screw that all the way through like so. There we go, tight, a quarter turn and a nip. There we go. Then you take your spring, pop that in, and in the cylinder top, and screw that home, and there we go. One done. Perfect. There we are. And there we are. We now have the front axle done and completed with the U-bolts and the locking nuts and the leaf springs all ready to go onto the car. So that's step 8 complete, as you can see, with the dampers as well. So done quite well so far. Right, so we're on step 9, and step 9, we need to pop the front axle that we made in step 8, so our front axle here and our dampers, we need to start putting them onto the chassis. So we need 2 of the BA1s, we need 6 of the BA5s, we need 2 of the BA6s, we need 6 of the MB1s, and 2 of the MB3s. And these are just 3mm, whether they are a locking nut, flange nut, and these are the step screws, which are 3x14mm, and a little bit of our locking thread as well. So that's it. Go pop that onto the chassis now. And there we have step 9 complete. So we've now popped on the leaf spring front axle with the damper on here, and that's all nicely secured. And we're then done. And you've got a little bit of suspension movement. So that's that, done both sides, as you can see. There we go, done both sides. So on to the next, step 10. Right then, so for step 10, we need E8, which is the right steering upright, and we also need E9, which is the left steering upright. We need some components from our bag. So we need from our BA bag, we need the 3mm nuts. We need 3 of those. We need from the bag B, we need a couple of these little E-clips. And we need some ball ends, 3 of those. We also need the upright shafts, 2 of those, and the link pins, 2 of those. And we need to install this with the rods we made in the previous steps. So you've got your steering rod, which is this one, and also this other steering rod as well. So we need to install those onto the chassis system that we built over here. There we go. So we'll get that all put on. So step 10 is the steering system in place, and that involved putting these arms here for the wheel axles, this steering onto the system, onto the mechanism, onto here, steering rod that goes across to the other side, and again the uprights into this on the right hand side. And there is these little E-clips that you have to put through the shaft with a little bit of grease through the shaft. So as you can see in the drawing there, you can see a little bit of grease through the shaft pin. There we are. So that's step 10, steering onto the front of the chassis. Okay, so we are now on step 11. We are going to need quite a few components from our bag C now, and quite a lot of nut and bolts, because we've got to make 2 of these leaf spring suspension parts. And here are the components for that, which are from the BA bag, the 3mm locking nuts. We need 13 of those. So you can see I've arranged those in 2 rows of 6 plus the extra one. We need the 3x14mm step screws. We need 4 of those. That's out of the bag C. We need the U-bolts, which we need 4 of those. We need the spring seat, which we need 2 of those. We need the round bushing, we need 2 of those. We need the rear suspension part stay, which is 4 of those. We need 2 of the leaf springs, and we need the shaft, the 3mm by 100mm shaft. There we are. So that's all the components. We need to pop all that together, make 2, so that we can put these on the actual chassis. There we are. So like it said, make 2 of these leaf spring suspension systems. So you literally sandwich F2 and F8. You sandwich those in between, like so. You've got your U-bolt, and you've got your 3mm locking nuts, and your spring seat. And you then put the ends on as well. So these are the rear suspension stays on the ends. And yeah, make 2 of those. So there we go, done. 2 completed. And we now put that onto the chassis using the 3mm shaft, which is 100mm long, 3mm in diameter, and the MC4 bits and the locking nut. And here we are. So we've put the 100mm long, goes all the way through, and the 2 leaf springs. I'm just making sure that the bolts, as per the diagram here, are inside the chassis. So there, and just got to tighten that down. There we are, tighten down. So you've got a bit of movement on this side. You can see by the drawing, that's this side. And on the other side of the drawing, there we go. I'll spin that around. And again, you got some movement. There we are. So that's the rear leaf springs on the chassis. We are now on step 12, and we are starting to get onto differentials. Oh yes. Let's take a look at the parts that we're going to need to make 2. So just a quick step here, make 2. So we are going to need the main ring gears. So we need 2 of those, 1 for each of the axles. We're also going to need the differential covers. We need 2 of those. Again, 1 for each axle. We're going to need the star shafts, again 2 of those. we are going to need the small bevel gears, 6 of those, so 3 in each axle. We are going to need the large bevel gear, again, 2 in each axle. We're going to need these washers, they act like shims, and we're going to need these cap screws. The cap screws are out of the B bag, and they are 2 by 5mm, and they're of the cap head. You see a slightly different head in there. Okay, and yeah, and of course we're going to need some of our grease, and we'll put those two together, make the two differential gears. So here we are with the completed differentials for step 12. You get 2 of these, and they're quite heavy actually, and they're fully greased, and you use a little bit of thread lock for the little 2 by 5mm cap head screws. So you go, so 2 of those, 1 there and 1 there. There we go. Step 12 is complete. Let's move on to step 13. Yay! Right, we are now on step 13. Step 13, we're going to need some more parts from the B bag. So we're going to need these E-clips, the larger of the E-clips. We need actually 11 of those. So they're the BB7, so you can see I've laid those out here. And you need some of the metal bearings. And in the kit, you do get these bushing, these brass bushing ones. But again, as you know with me, I get proper bearings. So as you can see, I've got 14 of the bearings here for the 1150 size. I've also got the MC13 shafts. I've got 2 of those because we're making 2 of these. And we also have the MC14 shaft. Got 2 of those. We also have these MC8s, which are these 3 of the bevel gear shafts. We also need, from the parts trees, we need A1 and A3. So we need 2 of the A1s, which is this 2, an A3 and an A4, which are going to be for later steps because we're building 2 of these. And we're also going to need our differential gears that we built in step 12. We've got to put all these together with the E-clips, and not forgetting greasing where shown. And yeah, put these together, make these 2 differential gearboxes for the rear, the two axles. Here we go. So for step 13, been a little bit busy on this step, putting all the E-clips and the bearings onto the shafts. It says grease here, but that's if you're using those brass bearings. I'm not using those, so I've not used them. So I've put together, as you can see on here, so this is the shaft with your 2 E-clips. So again, all I did here is put the E-clip on one side, put the E-clip on and just pushed it against the tabletop so it clips into place, so it's all done. Pop your 2 bearings in the middle, and then the other E-clip on the other side, again pushed and got it down, and now you have the 2 bearings either side of your shaft. Same again for the other shaft going out the other side. Again, you've got your 2 bearings and your E-clips in position, and not worrying about the grease because again I'm using proper bearings. And what I've also done is the 2 of the A1s where you've got the bevel gear shaft through, you pop an E-clip onto that as well. But again, as I'm using bearings, I don't need to do the greasing in this section, but grease the bevel gear ready. So you do 2 of the A1 parts with the same bevel gear, as you can see that's there. So that's ready for me. And then the A3, same again, bevel gear through, put the E-clip on the other end and grease up. So we're there on step 13, ready to put our differential gear together and our shafts together and put them into the gearboxes and do the next. So for step 14, we need some more parts from our parts bag. From parts bag BA, we need these 3 by 15mm screws. These are the panhead screws. So again, checking with the drawing, as you can see, they're the correct ones. So we need 8 of those. So as you can see, I've lined those up. We need 8 of the BA4s, again from the BA bag. they're the 3mm nut, so be careful. These are not the flange nuts or the locking nuts. These are the plain nut. Again, you can see coloured in a grey colour, so that denotes that they're the greyed out type of material. We also need these 3x4mm grub screws, 2 of those from the parts bag BB. So you can see you've got 2 of those. And we also need the MC5 cups. We need the joint cups. There we've got 2 of those. And it's putting 2 halves of the gearboxes together. So our A1 and A3 from our part 13 and differentials and axles. Put them together and screw the cases together, and using a little bit of the locking thread lock on the grub screw to make sure that that doesn't vibrate loose. And yeah, we're there. You're only doing the locking thread on the grub screw, not doing them on the 3mm nuts there and screws. You just the little grub screw. Okay, so we'll get that put together. So that'll be the rear axle A then assembled. And here we have step 14 now completed. So you've got the rear axle A all assembled up and ready to go. Okay, so step 15 for the rear axle B is pretty similar to the step 14 for rear axle A, except that we only have one of the drive cups, the joint cups, with the grub screw, as opposed to the other one had 2, so it had one either. The other axle had one either side. We're only going to have one, but screwing together and using the little bit of locking thread on the grub screw only, and using the 3x15mm screws and the nuts, 3mm nuts, exactly the same. So I'm not going to re-record another section with that, just it's the same. And yeah, we'll get that done.